Hi, and welcome to the World Networking Podcast, Philosophical Detours, number 14. Today we have Red joining us in a discussion about philosophy and kind of what it means in the day-to-day life. What's something you have experienced that helped shape your daily philosophy for when you go throughout your work and your daily tasks? Red?
Oh, hi. Well, usually those were the experience that I had before. Like I grew up observing people, like observing what do they do and why they do things. And then after observing, then there's gonna be a processing on my part. Like I would try to understand why did they do that? Like why did something happen? And then from there, a more understanding of the people around me that made me realize that people might be um might be experiencing a lot of things that we do not directly see. That's why they do specific things. Like, for example, um, somebody who's not being so nice might be experiencing something else. That's why they do some nasty things. And then, well, with that understanding, I go with the philosophy of not judging right away, but try to understand more and carry on with what I do daily, whether it's going to be work or not.
Yeah, would you say that's been a positive for you overall to
I
experience
think,
those things?
yeah, I think it is, but there's positive and negative on that. It's going to be positive on my part since my understanding is growing bigger. Like, I would be listening more to people. But the negative part of it is some people might be taking advantage of that understanding that you have. Like if they are thinking that you are really understanding them, so they might be getting more from you than they are intending to. Like they would think that, yeah, this person can understand me or this person knows what I'm going through. So I will be, I will be involving her or I will be getting more from her because she knows what I have and what I don't have. And I think that's a negative part of it. But overall, it's really positive. It's just how he put it into perspective that you aren't supposed to be um, taking everything, but it's kind of give and take, but it's more of putting boundaries on things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting that in perspective for people is creating boundaries that you can define and understand so you can be a part of either enforcing them or growing upon them. Expanding your comfort zone is something that's healthy and that always feels uncomfortable. But being uncomfortable isn't always a bad thing. It's positive for your growth. But I still feel uncomfortable about podcasting, for instance. That's something that
Oh,
pushes me out of my comfort zone, but it is a positive for me due to that interaction of constantly having accountability for what you put out when you're having a discussion. You don't want to steer people the wrong way actively. At least I don't wake up in the morning looking to do that. So I try to have a quality discussion when I come to podcast. And that's something I've been able to refine a little better impromptu through multiple moments like this where I can see that people have an open perspective about wanting to observe changes within others and observe where they can change within themselves. And that can be an inspiration to motivate anyone to come together for a project like this. That's what really keeps me attracted to wanting to be challenged by it. Is it's not only challenging, but it's truly rewarding to be able to have that learning and engagement.
Right, right. Well, that's a really good idea because, nowadays, or even back in the days, people would be watching different videos, like, and they would be seeing videos that are not really facing what that's happening. So people also need something that they can get inspiration from and have a plan of action. How are they going to be using that inspiration that may be coming from this podcast or any podcast? Like they can have a plan of action. How are they going to get the inspiration that they had from the podcast, and how can they bring that to life, like make it something that would influence more people just to have a better circle or a better community in the long run. Like I know that nowadays people or even the younger ones are really interested into watching videos since everybody is tuned in to social media. But yeah, this is a good idea of channeling the correct energy and then giving it out and influencing these people who are watching or who are listening to these type of things.
Yeah, I think that's very true when it comes to those kinds of situations.
And one more thing, as you go with this particular experience, or you really get used into this, that you will also learn, you're you will be able to apply what I said, the more understanding of things. Like you would be learning not just to do things with this specific steps, but you will be learning to look at things into different perspective, like talking to different people, hearing different perspective and understanding, and then looking at things differently, not just by following what you already know, but learning from others as well, and how they take a look at things, how they perceive things, or how they visualize things. That can greatly influence not only you, but their listeners as well.
Yes. Yes, and that's important, is having that engagement to where it's something that's benefiting to engage with.
Right, right. Well, that's not only that. Not only the personal experience that you have and listening to the experiences of people around you, but also it can be some forms of like watching videos, not just watching videos, but reading as well. Um, I have tried looking into some books that talks about behavior and philosophy and logic. And there, I have encountered some interesting books, like books about dreams, all sorts of books. So I will not be mentioning any specific, but reading will also broaden your horizon in understanding things. Like, you would know a specific thing, you know this particular behavior, but you just don't know what it is called or how it is being nurtured. But you can learn those from reading different books or different uh different what do you call that, different digest.
Yeah, so that's something that people can break down and into a situation that brings them something that they can share and maybe bring out a further education and skill process, like Skillshare process through.
Right, right. Well, this is one thing that I have in mind. This is also what I've been practicing because, it's really hard to start or to know where to start. Like, where should I start? Should I be listening to different podcasts like these, or should I be watching videos? Should I be reading? How would I know if it's correct or if it's accurate? Like, how would I know that what I am feeding on is acceptable or it's correct per se? It's going to be difficult. But one thing that you can start with is asking questions. Like, when something happened, ask questions, or you can ask yourself or ask others about it. Ask questions. And the most important question for me is the why question. Like, I know that most of the people are not used to the why questions, but using why or asking why would be broadening your perspective on things. Like, you would be understanding more. Let's say you are meeting up with somebody and or your friend, and your friend is late for this specific meeting, but this is a very important meeting. Like, you're going to be uh, reaching some of your goals because of that meeting. But since your friend was late, then you missed some of it. No, I know that we can be emotional with that. But before we judge, let's ask the question why. So, why is this person late? And then they would be, of course, they would be giving you some information about that. And then it's up to you if you're going to be stopping. But if you do not understand yet, or you do not have a full understanding yet, then you can ask another why. And then perhaps with those questions, simple questions, you may really um you may really get what's going on, why is it happening, and then think about how to resolve it or do something about it or just use it for the better. Know that next time this is gonna be happening, and because of this event that took place, perhaps we can go into a different direction, things like that. So yeah, just a question why. Or aside from why is a question how, like how things are done. It's
Yeah.
not for you to give out what you know, but you ask that question to know more, to understand the process, like how is it being done, or like
Yeah,
it's
the probing
it's
questions to
learning.
kind of dig and dive into a situation to understand like what someone's maybe trying to get at or what the project really needs,
Right,
or a
right.
situation like that's especially helpful if you're trying to help a local area or in a certain field, and you'll know what skills you need to refine if
Right.
there's a lack of leadership involved.
Right. I mentioned asking those questions because nowadays I do not notice it a lot. Like people would be giving out things and people would be providing information, just feeding information, and the receiver like might be overwhelmed with that because the receiver does not understand what's going on. Like the receiver does not understand what's that for, or why was it given to them, or how are they going to be absorbing everything like that.
Yeah,
People nowadays would, no, I'm not saying everybody, but yeah, people would just be taking what's being given to them without processing it or without understanding what's going on or why are things being done. So yeah, it's just a waste of some, some resources if that happens.
yeah. No, it definitely is. And I think there's a lot of missed opportunities from miscommunications when it comes to facilitating forward progress. A lot of people are uncomfortable with sharing their opinions in group settings, so things tend to get unheard. And I think that's a good philosophy to have when it comes to a work philosophy, is having enough integrity to trust yourself to voice up your opinion and be forward about what you're trying to achieve will be from that engagement. It doesn't mean you voice up every concern you have. I mean, maybe you have a very small complaint and you decide to brush that off. That's completely okay if it's not something that's direly going to affect your achievement of that day. And
Right, right.
if you have an end goal in mind, that's a positive.
Right, right. Well, I'm not saying that, yeah, we can be moaning about everything as what people from the UK said. Um, we cannot be complaining about things all the time if we have a broader understanding of things. Like if you have this particular skill of checking out the perspective, like looking at things into a bigger way, like looking at the bigger picture rather than being just specific with your experiences and what you were going through, but practicing understanding, practice everything that you have learned and look at things, look at the bigger picture, and you would understand how things are interconnecting and how actions are affecting each other. That can, well, make you be able to participate and achieve what the vision is or the end goal is.
So would you say that diversity is something that you keep as a core component of your daily philosophy, of having an understanding of?
Well, yeah, definitely, because if you try or if you start practicing more understanding, then diversity would be part of it. Like not just being selective, but being able um, to hear out different types of people or different culture. And it's not you are supposed to be um, practicing it on your own, but listening into it and understanding and then respecting it, and then try to think how can the complex diversity work together towards your end goal.
I think that's a positive way of framing it. Red, and that's well put. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. It's always there are things that may not be acceptable for us because we are not so used to it, but it doesn't mean that we have to apply it on ourselves, but just listen to it and understand it and just be respectful. It can be about religion or it can be about politics and things like that. I know we are really careful with those particular topics. And, and it's really difficult to moderate such topics if you're going to be talking about it. But if you have your grounds, like you are going to be listened into, but it doesn't mean that everybody must be doing that or must be practicing that, must be following that. As long as you are being respectful on how you put your points on the table and everybody is respectful as well, then there could be harmony somewhere.
Yeah, I like that. There can be harmony. And in a lot of cases, people doubt that. But it's very possible to settle differences, and maybe you don't start in harmony, but you conclude in harmony. Or at least a base level of it, a component of it.
Right.
So
Right.
we'll
And I know
put,
people would be complaining about that and saying that no, you do not believe in anything if you're such a believer of that. You're just being neutral. Well, you're still a believer. You're being a believer, being neutral. That's what's for me. You don't need to go to pick sides every time. Like you don't need to tell them that you're siding with them just to show that you are understanding them. Just listening them out, hearing them out, that's enough. And you listen and you respect it, and that's gonna be something that people can practice. That's what I think, at least.
yeah. Yeah, no, I completely understand. And I think that's a good place for today's conclusion. I have to unfortunately get to an event, and you're working on some stuff today, so I think keeping it short and to a good prime message is positive today to leave you guys with. And honestly, Red, it's been a pleasure. I hope that we'll see you back here in the near future, and maybe we can engage in a further discussion about what group engagement can.
Oh, sure, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, I think if we engage on what group engagement philosophies can be positive ones, that would be a good discussion to further research into and maybe compare about. So thank you. And we will return next week when we have episode 15.
Yeah,
Thank you,
I'm glad
guys.
to be of assistance. And thank
Oh,
you, everybody.
It's been great. Thank you. And this has been the World Networking Podcast. Take care.